New rules that are expected to be approved by the FCC could affect every aspect of how we use the internet. The FCC wants greater authority to treat internet service like a public utility, saying its plan will protect the open internet, a concept known as net neutrality.
That means that your broadband provider can't block or slow down your access to any websites or applications on the internet. And it also means that the broadband provider can't charge companies like Netflix an added fee for access to a fast lane that gets you content any faster.
Even after these rules pass, internet users won't notice changes because the internet has always been open. But the rules ensure that it remains open in the future and doesn't become like cable TV.
That's a closed system where you have cable companies that are controlling the channels that you get to see, the content you're able to view, and how easily you're able to find it.
President Obama and major tech companies like Google, Amazon, and Facebook support net neutrality. But Republicans want to strip the FCC of any authority over internet regulation and oppose reclassifying broadband as a utility.
You could have extra taxes added to your broadband bill. The government could regulate rates. They could also force the broadband providers to open up their network to competitors.
One of the big problems with net neutrality is nobody seems to know what it is. People have this vague notion, net neutrality, we should treat all content providers or all data evenly and not discriminate against some data over others, but that's about the most you get out of people. When you try to reduce this to a real legal policy, it comes out as the idea that internet service providers, ISPs, that's Comcast and Time Warner and the other companies that create the internet infrastructure. It's literally the cables through which all of our signals go from the content providers to literally right up to our home. That these guys shouldn't be able to discriminate against certain types of data or content and over others. They should treat all data the same. You've heard this idea that information wants to be free and we shouldn't restrict it through the mechanism of allowing people, certain companies, to discriminate against some types of content, let's say, in favor of Netflix or online gaming and against, Facebook or your own content that you might send out or different types of websites. That's the general idea. Now, there's a lot to speak about how this works in practice because the idea here, actually both the idea and the practice are very bad. But people have this kind of general idea that if it's the internet, it's information, it's data, somehow, we don't have to worry about discriminating or treating some types of data differently.
Okay, so government regulations set the ground for regulatory capture of the FCC. This idea that you can just impose rules on a group without any blowback or attempt to control the rules from that group is a fantasy. Interference with how businesses run their affairs is an invitation for corruption, market anomalies, booms, busts, crashes, and so on. So large ISPs use their preferential treatment that they get out of the FCC to secure a monopoly in their local markets and drive out competition. Companies like AT&T, Comcast, and Verizon can no longer ignore the threat of Google Fiber and other competitive services. Google is large enough to not fold when faced with lobbying pressure, so ISPs have to actually offer competitive services. Capitalizing on their monopoly markets, they can lobby the U.S. government to pass a law that would allow them to downgrade the quality of their services at the expense of the consumer.
This is BlissVille, Misadventures in BlissVille. I'm David Lawler. I'm here with my friend Andrew Legank, and we're going to talk about net neutrality. Now, according to the Wikipedia, net neutrality is the principle that internet service providers and governments should treat all data on the internet equally, not discriminating or charging differentially by user, content, site, platform, application, type of attached equipment, or mode of communication. It's kind of a strange definition because I don't think that is the complete picture. So basically,
it's not the complete picture.
We're turning the mic over to Andrew because he is just brimming with all kinds of anger. So just,
Well, what happened really is that a group of unelected bureaucrats took it upon themselves to usurp power over the entire internet using laws that were written 60 years before the internet even was invented.
Okay. 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
so basically like antiquated law that is like treating the internet as it would a phone.
A utility, the phone company or, specifically like phone companies. And anybody who remembers the way it used to be with phone companies before the internet came along and changed all of that and gave us VoIP and all of these other things, remember how much fun it was when these guys were running all of that shit. Like how cheap it was for us, when we were getting paid for we were paying for long distance phone calls and other things like that.
Yeah, and I do remember a lot of companies sort of gathering around and trying to cut up pieces of the market.
And so then, remember that we had the big Ma Bell, and then they were broken up into the Baby Bells and all this nonsense.
Remember New York in the 80s? We went through like 4 or 5 different phone companies, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
New York Telephone, New York Bell, 9X.
Remember 9X? And then,
Bell Atlantic.
Right.
And then it finally became Verizon, I guess, is who, But my phone
wasn't it Lucent for a while, like for 5 days, and then it was like Verizon. Yeah, I think
it was like that. It was like that in Philly too. We would have like Bell Atlantic, Philadelphia Bell, Philadelphia. Philadelphia
that was all due to government intervention, the FCC.
Right.
There are a lot of people online right now celebrating this victory for net neutrality when they don't even know, nobody knows what the net neutrality means to the people who are regulating it. Okay. It's kind of like the way it was when they elected Obama.
Right.
They elected somebody like they put all of their hopes and dreams of what they wanted him to be onto him and said, this is who this guy is.
Hope and change.
Hope and change, is a meaningless thing. It can mean, a million different things to a million different people. And that's what's going on here. A lot of people, what they want out of this is, well, here's the sales pitch for net neutrality.
Okay.
At some point, what we want to stop is something that's never happened before, which is ISPs creating special fast lanes for certain companies who pay. Like, let's say Facebook doesn't pay, but MySpace does pay. Then you'll be able to get to MySpace really quickly as a customer, but you won't be able to get to Facebook really fast at all. Right? This has never happened before, and there is no reason for it to happen at all.
So this is what they assume, the worst-case scenario. This is what they think would happen.
Because something might happen that has never happened, and there is no reason for it to happen. We need to change the entire way the Internet has existed from its inception.
Right.
And since it's been privatized. We need to change all of the equitable way that the Internet has worked since it was privatized.
Okay.
Now there are a lot of people, to them, look, it means let's take the idea of Netflix, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Netflix is an interesting case because they've been very much behind the idea for net neutrality. They've spent a lot of money lobbying for it, along with a lot of other shady groups that are really, really scary. But Netflix, let's just stick with them. They're a gigantic fucking corporation. They are not, your average Joe. Okay.
Yeah.
The way a company would normally deliver video like that is much more expensive than the way Netflix has been doing it.
Right.
Netflix has been offloading all of the work on all of the ISP. And at this point, in prime usage hours, you're looking at Netflix is like half or a third of the traffic that these ISPs are handling. So the ISPs will go. Some of them have been going to Netflix saying, "Look, you got to do this, or we're going to throttle you back. Like you guys are just like hammering us, and you got to stop this. You guys have to pay for some of this." Now, ordinarily, somebody like me, I work in the industry. If I want to deliver video, I'm going to pay for proper video delivery. I'm not going to buy cheap bandwidth that doesn't peer with these guys already. I'm going to already have it set up so that it's proper video delivery, and they're not doing that. They're just sending it out the cheapest way possible and letting the ISP deal with it. So the ISPs are saying, hey, look, man, you got to shovel a few dollars our way. Okay. Now, Netflix doesn't like that. Now, the end customer looks at that and says, hey, look, man, I pay these guys, $60 a month for my internet, and they tell me that I'm going to get 60 megabits per second. Right. Now, I'm not using only but a fraction of that. So why is there a problem? And I'll tell you why there's a problem. It's because there's a business model with the way consumer internet is sold. Okay. They oversell. They sell like because most consumers don't use anywhere near 60 megabits per second. They use a tiny fraction of that, and that's what they count on. And now you go to your cable company and you tell them, I want a business line that's 60 megabits per second. You know how much that's going to cost you?
How much?
About 6 times what your 60 megabit per second will cost you if you're a consumer. Why? Because they expect you to use it.
Okay.
So basically what a lot of these people want to do is to unwittingly raise the shit out of their internet bill in the name of quote unquote fairness. And then they've also now they've got the damned FCC involved. These are the Nipplegate people. Yeah. These people are. I mean, do you really want them like taking care of the internet? Are you kidding me?
Well, that's the government cannot even handle lines at the post office. And
take a look at what's happening in Washington State. These fucking people are so incompetent and corrupt that they can't even deal drugs and sell them. Yeah. They can't sell marijuana, which sells itself.
Yeah.
they're fucked that up. And these are the kind of people that we want to put in charge of the free internet, which has been really remarkable in that it has been untouched for the most part.
Right.
Aside from the NSA collecting everything from everybody.
Now, this is interesting, and this is what worries me, is that this is very much when you go to a place like the Wikipedia. I go to the Wikipedia all the time. And I just to get information about things. This is a very one-sided argument that they have here. Basically, they're saying the only people who are against net neutrality, it says here, that net neutrality proponents claim that telecom companies seek to impose a tiered service in order to control the pipeline, create artificial scarcity, and oblige subscribers to buy their otherwise uncompetitive services. Opponents of net neutrality
Can I interject something there for 1 second?
Go ahead.
See, this is a classic case of not identifying what the actual problem is. Mm-hmm. These companies are not non-competitive just because that's the way it is. They're non-competitive because they've been allowed to have monopolies. Your cable company has been allowed to have a controlled monopoly by the government. Yeah. That's your problem. Not any of this other stuff. If you want competition amongst your cable companies, having the FCC control your internet connection is not the answer. The answer is to break up the monopolies in these cable companies and let other companies come in and compete. That's the answer.
Sort of a kind of the same problem that we're having with Obamacare.
Yes, very much the same problem with Obamacare. You ignore the real problem, and then you put on you ignore the problem. Then you layer on layer of stupid on top of layer of stupid on top of layer of stupid, and then tell us you're fixing it, but you're not. All you're doing is fucking it up more.
Now, this is the other thing that concerns me. It says opponents of net neutrality include hardware companies and members of cable and telecommunications industries, including major telecommunication providers such as AT&T. Now, what they're saying basically is we have to be anti-corporation.
Right.
If you're for net neutrality, then you're against corporations. Corporations are the bad guys. They're out to, I don't know. So this Wikipedia listing is one-sided. Arguments for net neutrality are detailed, and they seem thoughtful, but arguments against net neutrality just point
stupid.
To evil corporations.
The only problem is all of us who are speaking out against net neutrality were right, just like everybody who was speaking out against Obamacare was right, and they were called kooks and lunatics and conspiracy theorists. They were right, though. Racists. Yeah, I mean, whatever they can think of to dismiss them and not pay attention to what they're saying when it's important. And then all of a sudden, later on, when they're proven right, the other side goes, gee, whoever could have predicted that would have happened? Like, it's like, yeah, you know what? Everybody was telling you all along that this was going to happen. Everybody was telling you how this was going to go. Everybody was telling you that people were going to lose their health insurance. Everybody told you it was impossible for you to keep your plan if you wanted to.
So you're against the idea of net neutrality, and you're not a corporation. You're not evil, at least not to my direct knowledge.
I run a very small corporation that does not benefit at all from any monopoly given by the government or anything.
You have an argument for, or rather against, net neutrality, but the thing is, yours is an informed argument, and you're in this business.
Yes.
Now, what is going to happen? I mean, what is, like, I was thinking about this, if the government steps in and regulates the, the pipes, the internet.
I mean, look, I'm on my way out anyway. It's my time in all of this is past. I'm going to sell out and go do something else. And that's what's really going to happen here. A lot of people are just going to, these large corporations like Google was involved in writing these regulations. Now, just because their little mantra is to do no evil doesn't mean that's actually what they, how it turns out at the end of the day. Gigantic corporations have been involved in this. The FCC, the regulators, are in the pocket of gigantic corporations. You are giving the power to these gigantic corporations by doing exactly. You think that you're doing something for the little guy when all you're doing is giving all of the power to gigantic corporations. That is also gigantic corporations cannot pay gigantic corporations other money.
That's the dirty little secret about liberal politics, is that they act like they're working for the little guy, but they're actually, it's like Elizabeth Warren. She acts like she's like this big liberal, but she's really kind of a corporate little slut, isn't she?
She really is. It's like she never ever, if she was real, she'd be fighting right alongside Ted Cruz about half the time.
Yeah.
If she was real.
They can't do that because you can't have, you can't have Coke without Pepsi. You can't have, Superman without Lex Luthor. So there always has to be some fighting between them, even though they really do have a lot more in common than they do.
That's another, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, the far left and the supposed far right have a lot in common on a number of issues that are facing us today. There's a lot of agreement that can be had if people would actually sit down and work together. And put aside their differences on other things and say, look, we need to get these big banks in control. Yeah. But it doesn't mean we need to socialize them. Doesn't mean we need to raise their taxes, but we need to stop this shit. We need, Glass-Steagall worked for how many years since it was instituted during the Depression? And it was overturned in the 90s with the Republicans and Clinton. Yeah. If all we need to do, we could repeal everything else that they've done since then and just put a one-line thing that Glass-Steagall is back in full effect, and all of this shit that has gone on with the derivatives and all of these banks running amok would be over and done with. Now, why haven't we done that?
Well, that's the problem. You've just answered your own question, because we're dealing with a government that is expanding. They're hiring more and more people. It's becoming a bigger a way bigger government. What you're asking for is to write one line. One person can do that. We don't need millions of people working for the government, but they have to justify their jobs, so they're trying to make it look like they work.
It's true. You're right. Right.
Now, government stepping in to do this really scares me, because we can't have trans fat, we can't have smoking. Now they're going to be regulating the internet. Now does this come down to bandwidth? I mean, is it really about bandwidth? Bandwidth seems to be the concern, but I always believed that bandwidth was like inexhaustible. Like, there is potentially more bandwidth out there than drinkable water.
The ISPs are concerned with the last mile bandwidth. They have to keep building out in order to keep up with the demand, and to a certain extent, that's normal.
You have a product that people want. They want it, and they will pay for it. Why not?
Well, now they're really going to pay for it. Let me tell you.
Why not just go
This
out
is going to
there?
raise prices by a huge amount. This is going to be a huge shock to a lot of people who think that this is a right that they're entitled to. They're
hope
about
that my
to get
cable bill
bent
doesn't
over
go
a
up,
desk.
'cause if it does-
it's going to go up. It's going to go up.
So they're trying to act as though bandwidth is scarce. But I really don't think it is, because I think all you have to do is go out there and build more, make it bigger. You hired, you got jobs, economy.
Yeah, somebody
improves
has
the
to
economy.
pay for that, though. Somebody has to pay for that, and it has to work out in the numbers at the end of what you're paying in your bill. And that's fine. You know, the issue isn't that. I mean, the ISPs all know that they've got to continue building their networks out so that they can support more transit. But what's happening is companies like Netflix are making them have to build out faster and faster and faster, and that's getting in their way. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And when Netflix is the one that's taking up like a third of their bandwidth, they have every right to go to Netflix and say, "Hey, look, you guys need to do something about this."
But,
and if that means that the people who if Netflix has to pay money to the ISPs, then the people who use Netflix are probably going to have to pay a little bit more for their Netflix. But why should the rest of the people who don't use Netflix pay for people who do? Why should we all have our internet raised, our internet bills like double, triple, because people don't want to pay an extra dollar on their Netflix account?
If the government regulates, then they get a piece of the pie, and this becomes just another mandate, very similar to Obamacare, right? Mm-hmm. So they're going to make money off of this. So basically,
I mean, it sounds like the worst kind of partisan rhetoric, but it is so very similar to Obamacare that it's not funny. I mean, it really is.
Okay, this is probably going to piss you off. I looked this up. I looked up some numbers here about it's tax season, as you know. Now, on your income tax, basically, I was talking to my accountant, and my accountant was like, "You guys are on insurance, right?" And it's because if you're not, you got to fill out an extra form, and you got to do all this. And I'm like, "Yeah, we're on insurance." Yeah. And I'm reading that basically there are still millions of people uninsured at the moment.
There are more people uninsured than there were before.
Yeah, the government stands to make a cool $8 billion off of these fines that they're going to. So basically, it's
mostly on the backs of the poor.
Really. Yeah, because the people who can't afford insurance are the ones who need it.
Yeah, yeah.
And
you know what? We could have, for the amount of money that Obamacare cost, we could have given everybody a free "quote unquote" healthcare plan. Well, that was without any reform of the broken already system that they broke even more by doing Obamacare.
Okay, this is the thing that makes me want to take like a hammer that I have over here in this drawer over here and just smash it against my head, because
I know it makes you crazy.
What it is, it was the language. People didn't like the words that were being used. It was called single payer system, and they said, "Wait a minute. I'm a single payer." Now, basically, what I thought should have been done was, we already have health insurance in this country. It's called Medicare. What it should have done was been expanded. Stop calling it insurance. That's another thing, because I don't really believe this stuff is insurance, because I had an appendix operation. My appendix burst, and I had to have it removed. I had no money to pay for it, so I applied for Medicare. And guess what they did? They rejected it. And they gave me a $7,000 or $8,000 bill.
Right.
And I'm like, this is not insurance when they can just deny your claim. You know, you can't really argue with a burst appendix. You can argue with plastic surgery. I want to make my tits bigger.
Well, you can go in there and argue that bill.
I tried to, but basically they assumed that because I live with my mother that she was going to pay for it, because, you know, I didn't really have a job that paid that kind of a bill, so
right.
They just kept rejecting it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I paid a couple of sizable medical bills in my time when I didn't have insurance. they get thrown on your credit like anything else, and you have to pay the bill. And you go in there and you could do a payment plan with them. That's usually do that. And like they can cut the cost down if you're paying them cash. It's paying them with real money. It's a little bit different than the crazy bills that they give the insurance company, which is another problem with a medical.
That is
it's absolutely ridiculous.
Regan cost the insurance company $23,000.
Yeah.
And I looked at this itemized bill and I was like, the room that Bronwyn was in after she had Regan cost $700 a day. And
absolutely
then I looked at Beyonce. When Beyonce had her baby with Jay-Z, their room was like a private room with a big picture windows and all kinds of stuff, and it was only $800 a day. And I was trying to figure out, she had to share this room with somebody. So why was it $100 more? I would have loved that.
We've been looking at this stuff for a long, long time, and this is what happens. You're in favor of single payer.
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor of a free market system, a true free market system. That does not mean like a lot of Republicans use that phrase "free market" to describe what we already have now or had before Obamacare, which is not what I advocate for.
I was looking at the Obamacare, the healthcare exchange website when it was, when they actually got it going, because it took forever because they had problems. They spent $4 million putting that website together. I'm sure
more than
you could have done
60,
it.
Dude.
You could have done it in an afternoon.
They spent $60 million on the fucking website, and they couldn't even get it right. It was a joke. Like I could have done it. I could have done it at least, for the.
You could have done it in an afternoon.
Oh no, it was more complicated than that. But I certainly wouldn't have hired the jokers that they hired to do it. I mean, it was the listening to them talk was funny. Listening to their justification for using untested the technology to run the website, and listening to their rationale for that was really funny. I mean, these people had no experience in the real world at all with launching a website of that size.
I'll advance this theory. They did know what they were doing. They were working for the government, and they know the government would pay them any money, so they basically...
That is correct.
I mean, who wound up with all the money, really?
Oh God! It probably some donor of Obama's or to the Democrats. That's what. That's the way all this works. And the Republicans have their games along those lines too. It's not exclusively a Democrat or Obama thing. It's just the way. It's the way our politics works. It's the best government money can buy.
So basically you have like a bunch of people who aren't even going to be affected by this making decisions for the rest of us while using a corporate straw man argument. They make the corporations the bad guy in this. So is this a gateway regulation? That's my question. How far is this going to go?
Well, to tell you the truth, we don't even know what the regulations are. We've gotten a little, like a feel-good little blow smoke up your ass thing from the committee that okayed it.
Like the whole thing is like about
we don't know. They've
300
pages that we have not been privy to.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know what they're going to do. But you know what? When has anything having to do with the government in the last 10 years had 300 pages of anything that didn't have a whole lot of really bad shit in it? Can somebody tell me? Because like seriously, every 300-page thing that they put out that I can remember has been totally fucked up.
So when it comes to the government, as I like to say,
government,
they don't stop. They keep going. They do not relinquish power. Roswell, the Patriot Act, heads on sticks, that kind of stuff. Total, I don't know. There's no party for anarchy, and there's nothing we can do. We have no power. It seems like a decision like this, if you want to do something like this, you educate the public, you give them the pros and cons, and they make a decision. I mean, I feel like this is something
they can't do that because they don't want an educated public is their worst enemy. That's why we're turning out these morons from schools, these educated morons.
Didn't Thomas Jefferson say that? I could have sworn he did.
Did Thomas Jefferson said something similar to that? I don't think he was calling the population morons, but something about an educated populace is necessary for or something like that. Yeah. I'm using it to call people morons. And the people who advocated for this shit, they are fucking morons. They have no idea. Like, they're advocating for something that's some kind of dreamland, fucking la-la land thing that's never going to materialize. The only thing that's going to materialize is something awful. Mm-hmm. And they're not even, at the end of the day, going to learn the lesson from that. They're going to say, "Oh, look at this. This has no." They're going to say it has nothing to do with what they themselves, the role that they played in it. And they all played a role in it. Everybody who went online advocating for net neutrality and not even knowing what the hell was going to come out of it is to blame for this mess that is going to occur.
Okay. I have just one more question, and this is something that hits close to home here. Okay. Now, I was talking to a friend who is a podcaster, and he said basically that if the government steps in and regulates this kind of stuff, it's going to regulate podcasting, and then you're going to need a license, and he's going to have to wind up buying a license to do this. Now, is that possible? Is that actually going to happen?
It is. It's entirely possible. Now, well, here's one possible good thing that might occur is that the courts have not looked kindly upon the FCC doing things like this in the past. Things like this have been tossed out before,
right.
And this might get tossed out. But in the meantime, a whole lot of damage can be done, and the Obama administration in particular loves to like just do something and say, "Hey, you guys stop me," and then they get so much damage done in the meantime that it's almost impossible to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where that's going to go, but yes, that is a possibility. I do think that that's where we'll be within 5 years. Most likely, like that, you're going to need a license to have a website. All of this stuff that we've taken for granted as being free, we just gave a group of unelected bureaucrats complete control over, with no oversight whatsoever, and a Congress that is so dysfunctional that it cannot regulate, it cannot do anything to regulate within the idea of checks and balances that are in the Constitution.
Right.
They cannot do anything. They won't do anything. Look
Right.
at what's going on with the executive amnesty right now.
Yeah.
Like that is completely unconstitutional. The president cannot write law with an executive order. It wasn't even an executive order; it was a memo, right? And here he is giving people citizenship, de facto citizenship, and nobody's doing anything about it. The
Right.
Republicans, they're afraid somebody's going to say that we shut down the government. Give me a fucking break. You really expect me to believe that that's what you're afraid of? You're on the same side. All of this is kabuki fucking theater. You want those people legal and voting for Democrats just like they do.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like you want what this is about is diluting America, bringing in people from everywhere else, and so that those of us who live here and are Americans are no longer part of the political process because we're drowned out. Our voices aren't heard anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And not that they've been heard anyway. Nobody's listening. Like for Christ's sake. I mean, look at somebody. I personally thought in the last election that the Republicans needed to be defeated at all costs. Mm-hmm. It was very important that they not, in their current iteration, take any kind of power. They should not have gotten the Senate. It was a very, very bad thing.
This is what you believe that.
Yes, I do. I mean, I understand the partisan argument of getting in there to stop Obama, but I think that the Republicans in power in the Senate, they will enact and go along with more of Obama's agenda than the Democrats would have.
Yeah.
The way that they won, the dirty tricks that they pulled on people trying to reform the Republican Party, the evil racist Tea Partiers,
Yeah.
The things that they did and the way that they knifed their own supposed side, their own base in the back to get where they got. You can't elect.
But to be
guys.
fair, the Democrats did that too with Hillary. They destroyed Hillary for some reason. In 2001,
with the Democrat Party, Hillary is seen as establishment. She's seen as establishment, not.
They had a whole group of women within the Democratic Party out there to destroy Hillary, just to bring in Obama or something like that. It could be possible that Obama was obviously more popular than Hillary, but
at the time, Obama was seen as grassroots. He was seen as the guy that he like for lack of a better term, like he was like their Tea Party guy, and Hillary Clinton is their establishment person, the man. She's and so that was the way the roles were cast.
See that? Okay, I hate to say it, but if I were to pick my devil, pick my poison, I'd go with Hillary over Obama. I really would.
Over Obama? Yeah, I would have too. I would have too. Like I don't have any.
It's really quite baffling when you think about how
I know
popular
that
he got.
Hillary's all about Hillary. Obama's more. I mean, Obama's got an agenda.
He's a rock star.
I'm not even comfortable speculating on what the hell his actual agenda is. Like, because it's whatever it is, I don't want to know about it because it scares me and I won't be able to go to sleep.
He tends to disappoint me when he isn't. He can't even bring himself to say that this ISIS group is Muslim. He can't even say it.
I know,
and that alarms me.
He's
trying to draw parallels to Crusades. That was us thousands upon thousands of years ago.
And there was a Reformation.
Yeah,
like there's and then don't look too close at the Crusades, because what was going on in the Crusades? Why were Christians from all over the world coming to fight Muslims? Why was that? What were the Muslims doing? What had the How had the Muslims been behaving? What had they been doing? Don't look too closely at that. But I mean, you want to look at the Inquisition. Now, there's something that was.
But again, this was thousands of years ago, and I like to think we've evolved, but there is one party on this planet who has not evolved.
That's
and
right.
They're continuing to do, and the thing is, I don't want to think about it, but right now, I mean, remember where we were before 9/11? I feel like we're coming back to that again, and I don't like it. I think this group.
I don't like it either. Yeah.
I think this group is very scary. They're going in beheading whole groups of people.
Yeah, I know they are. They're scary. They are. But I mean, I disagree with sending our troops in there again. Certainly, unless if we're gonna get serious about fighting a war, about going in there and killing people and breaking things.
Mm-hmm.
If we're gonna get serious about that and wipe these people out and not be a Meals on Wheels, not worry so much about collateral damage that we're not actually taking it to the enemy. If we can do that, then yeah, okay, fight them. But if we can't, then we should just leave it well enough. We leave well enough alone, because we can't. We supposedly have the strongest military force in the world, but we've crippled ourselves. And it's sending our guys over there to die because we're afraid to wage a real war is just irresponsible.
Okay, now did you hear what this woman said? Marie Harf with the State Department.
So. Oh God, it's one of those idiots from the State Department. Where do they find those chicks? They're like 22.
This really made my head spin.
Have you heard that Jen Psaki woman? That woman is a fucking moron. My God, where the hell did they dig her up from?
Well, wait till you hear this one. She said, "We're killing a lot of them, and we're going to keep killing more of them. So are the Egyptians, so are the Jordanians. They're in this fight with us, but we cannot win this war by killing them. Yes. We cannot kill our way out of this war.
We need to give them jobs.
We need to get the lack of jobs.
They need a health care plan. They need their net to be neutral.
Never mind the fact that the majority of these terrorists are very wealthy. They have more money than you, me, and God combined.
Yeah, well, you know what? Really, these people are only beheading people because of global warming. Excuse me, climate change.
It got 1 degree colder in the desert, and they're going nuts.
Yeah, man, they are upset. They are pissed. They are burning people to stay warm. That is what they're doing.
Oh God! All right, well, that's as good a place to end this episode. This has been BlissVille. We've been talking about net neutrality with Andrew Legang, and I don't. Any final thoughts, Andrew?
I don't know. I think I covered it. If I give a final thought, we'll be talking for another half hour, probably. I don't want to prolong things. Get myself in more trouble.
You'll be fine. And,
thanks for listening to my ranting and raving. I appreciate it.
And we will post Andrew's home address and a list of his fears at the conclusion of this episode. So anybody wants to take it up with him,
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds great.
There's a great line in the movie The Kane Mutiny, where Jose Ferrer throws a drink in Fred McMurray's face, and he says, "You want to do anything about it? I'll be outside. I'm a lot drunker than you, so it'll be a fair fight."
I like it.